All right. Today I'm going to be teaching you mathematics complex number. You are welcome to Artificial Maths Academy. Now we are going to talk. I'm in a series. Our series presently now is on this stage where we say divide one complex number by another. Now we want to what happens when you are dividing a complex number with another complex number. Now two questions are given to us. Evaluate this and simplify this. Solution. Okay, so when we are evaluating, we have first of all, I've taught you how to use conjugate. Conjugate. When you see a value like this, you use its conjugate to divide. To multiply. Now the conjugate of, okay, let's say number one. The conjugate will be 1 minus 2i. Now, how do you get your conjugate? You get your conjugate from the denominator. You change the sign. We have done it in our previous class. You always change the sign. That is the meaning of conjugate. So you now use this conjugate to multiply. Multiply through by its conjugate. Let me just use the value there given to us, 1 minus 2i. Let's go straight forward. We have 10 from the equation, 10 plus 5i. You put it in a bracket times its conjugate, 1 minus 2i. Put it in a bracket. You now divide. 1 plus 2i. You put it in a bracket times in 1 minus 2i. Now let's expand. Use this 10 to multiply 1. You have 10. Use 10 to multiply 2i. Remember there is a minus here. So plus times this minus will give us minus. Now 10 times 2 will give us 20i. We are done using 10 to multiply everything inside. Now we want to use plus 5i to multiply everything inside. So now 5i times 1 will give us plus 5i. 5i times 2i will give us minus. Remember there is a minus here and there is a plus here. So plus minus will give us what? Will give us minus. Now 5i, remember it will be 5 times 2 will give us 10. The I times I will give us, remember, I squared is the same thing as minus 1. So we have bracket open, minus 1 here. Now, all divided by, we'll now come to this part. Before we simplify this, we'll now come to this part. 1 times 1 will give us 1. This 1 again will now come and multiply this one, will give us 2i. Then you are done using this one. You now use 2i. You now use 2i to multiply everything. 2i times 1 will give us plus 2i. Right? Let me do it this way. 2i times 1 will give us plus 2i. 2i times minus 2i. 2i times minus 2i. Now watch. This will be 2 times 2 will give us 4. I times I will give us minus 1. Alright, this implies that now at this point, now I want to work on the numerator and also work on the denominator. Collecting like terms. Observe. This is I. If you take away 5i from 20i, you have 15i. Now, let me just work it straight. 10 minus what? 15i plus 10. How do you get that plus 10? It's a good question. You get the plus 10 because this minus times this minus 1 will give us plus 10. Now observe the denominator. These two will cancel each other. This will cancel each other because they are the same, but one has minus, one has plus. This other one, this times this, so you have 1 plus 4. 1 plus 4. How did 1 plus 4 came about? You have 1 minus 1 times minus 4 will give us just 4. Then this 1 here, so you have that value. So coming to this other side, if you observe very well, if you add these two, this implies that we have 20 minus 15i, all divided by 5. All what? Divided by what? 5. You can go further, or you can go further by saying 20 divided by 5, because 5 is a common denominator, minus 15i divided by 5, which will give us 4 minus 5 goes to itself 1, 5 goes to 15 is 3. So you have 3i as your final answer. Remember, for a complex number to be a complex number, it must be in this form: a real number and imaginary number. Let's go to the number 2. The number 2 of it. Number 2, say simplify. Simplify I raised to the power of minus 1. Recall in your indices, anything raised to the power of negative 1, that is I minus 1, is the same thing as 1 over I, laws of indices. This 1 over is replacing this negative 1 on top. So how do we solve this problem? Its conjugate will be minus I, because the denominator here, remember what we did here, the denominator here is positive I, while its conjugate will now be what? Negative I. So use this negative I, multiply through by minus I. So this implies that we have, from what we have here, 1 bracket open bracket close all over I bracket open bracket close. Its conjugate is minus I, so use minus I to multiply the numerator and use minus I to multiply the denominator. And this further, now let's multiply. Don't forget, I squared is the same thing as minus 1. Always remember that in complex number. If I use this I to multiply I, it will give you minus I squared. You get minus I. Okay, sorry, this is 1. Sorry, this is 1. 1 times this will give us I squared. I, just I. Just I. Just I. Then I times I times minus I will give us minus I squared. This implies that we have minus I, okay, minus I. Now let's get this done. Minus I, all divided by, recall that I squared is the same thing as this, so you have minus 1, which should give us minus I, all divided by 1, which implies that, or which is equal to minus I as our final answer. Minus I. So for it to be in a complex number form, it will be therefore our imaginary value z will be equal to 0 minus I, and this will be our final answer for this question 2.